Hello, everyone. Welcome to ITMO, which stands for Instant Transformation. We call it that, is that we use a very rapid technique to activate spiritual intelligence, which has the effect of shifting you from ego to soul almost instantly, which is what activates spiritual intelligence. So before we go into this rapid method, which is called the 3Q method, I want to spend a bit of time on talking about instant spiritual realization. And to do that, I'd like to read from an article I wrote called Direct. Now, let me just bring up this article. I want to read from it to explain what this is about. So what you should be seeing on the screen now is this article. Let me just double check that it's showing. Right, you should be seeing direct spiritual realization. I'm going to read a bit from this. Why is spiritual realization regarded as difficult? Oh, that spiritual realization is easy, but historically, spiritual realization was regarded as difficult. Because until recently, people didn't know about the human operating system, and they didn't know how to navigate the human operating system with ease and precision. But now we do know. Recent advances in psychology and neuroscience have identified the basic operating system of human awareness and discovered a simple way to unlock the spiritual dimension of intelligence for instant spiritual realization. Now, it mentions recent advances in psychology. There's a link there, which if you click the link, it'll take you to an article describing these recent advances. And this diagram here depicts the human operating system, or the human OS, with the ego and the soul at opposite poles of attention. Now, there's a link to this article in the description of this video, which you can click and read the whole article yourself. But let me read a little bit more from this article to give you more of a background in why we call this direct spiritual realization. Instant meditation sounds like a contradiction in terms. That's because we normally think of meditation as an exercise that requires an extended period of time, 20 minutes or more. But this is a misunderstanding. Meditation is a shift in identity beyond the ego. When this identity shift happens, all the qualities and capabilities of the higher self are immediately available in the form of spiritual intelligence. Traditional forms of meditation take an extended period of time to make this identity shift, but the time taken by traditional methods is a function of the method, of the identity shift itself. The 3Q method is a direct method that achieves this identity shift in a second without preamble or delay. That's why 3Q is called instant meditation. Direct method. Spiritual realization does not require long hours of daily meditation for years on end, or a progressive tour through the possibilities of esoteric experiences. To activate spiritual intelligence, you don't need to struggle with thoughts, or open your third eye, or experience Kundalini, or the flowering of the 1,000-petal lotus at the crown chakra, or have 3Q is a direct method of spiritual realization that works instantly without the need for struggle or for esoteric experiences of any kind. The essence of spiritual intelligence is the shift from false self to true self, from ego to soul, at the opposite pole of attention. The 3Q portal is a simple 3-step process that rapidly completes this shift from ego to soul and thus activates spiritual intelligence. So let's now take a look at this method, this rapid method of shifting and activating spiritual intelligence called the 3Q method. So I'm just going to show you some other slides to illustrate this method, and then I'm going to describe the method, and we can all do it together by following the description. So this symbol here represents 3 dimensions of intelligence: IQ, intellectual intelligence; EQ, emotional intelligence; and SQ, spiritual intelligence. And as you can see, IQ is primarily located in the left brain, primarily located in the right brain, and SQ is a function of the whole brain vibrating at the same frequency. Now, this symbol opens out into the twin poles of attention. We have the object pole of attention and the subject pole of attention. But these, everything you're aware of, and emotions, memories, beliefs, self-image, everything you could possibly be aware of is at the object pole. And at the subject pole is simply awareness itself, which is aware of objects of attention. And naturally, we are always at the subject, the one who is aware of objects of attention. However, the ego makes the mistake of assuming that we're at the object pole because the ego identifies with objects of attention. You know, the ego identifies with thoughts and emotions and with the body and with the mind. This is the ego mistake. But the truth, even while the ego is functioning, the truth is we're always at the subject pole. We're the one aware of thoughts and emotions and the body and mind, right? So the ego is the false self because it falsely assumes that I am thoughts and emotions. I am my thoughts and emotions. Now, I just want to build on this slide here. So let me just find the slide I'm looking for. I think it should be this one here. Not quite. It's further down. Here it is. So this slide is the same as the last slide with the addition of these 2 words, ego and soul. So this represents the human operating system, the human OS, with the ego and soul at opposite poles. And as I just said, the ego is identified with objects of identified with thoughts and emotions in the body and the mind, whereas the soul, the true self, is identified with consciousness itself. So the 3Q method is a rapid method of shifting from ego to soul, which is what activates spiritual intelligence. And there's a very rapid method that we use to do this. It has 3 steps, and these steps are notice, feel, and be. So in a moment, I'm going to describe these 3 steps to you so that you know exactly what to do to shift from ego to soul in an instant, which is what activates your spiritual intelligence. So step 1 is notice what? Well, simply notice the human operating system. Notice that attention has 2 poles at It has the object pole and the subject pole. We often forget this because we identify with the object pole characteristically, because normally we're being the ego, identified with thoughts and emotions and with the body and mind. So step one, notice, is simply noticing that, oh, hang on, there's a second pole. There's awareness itself, the subject pole, which is what I am. So it's just reminding ourselves of the human operating system. Now, the reason it's called the human operating system is that you're either being the ego or that's how we operate. They're the limits of the human operating system. You can go beyond the human operating system. That's called transcendental intelligence, which is prior to both poles of attention. But that's a much more advanced capability. So the human operating system that we are concerned with is this twin pole human operating system. That's the one we use when we're in our daily life, with the exception of transcendental intelligence. So normally we're at the object pole as the false self, as the ego. How to shift to the subject pole. So step one, as I said, is just noticing that there are two poles of attention, because we so often forget, don't we? We're so often bound up with the objects of attention that we identify with them and forget that I'm the one aware of objects of attention. You know, we forget there's a subject pole. So step one is just a reminder that there are two poles of attention, a reminder of your human operating system. It's a bit like, you know, driving a car and you're used to using all four gears, but you forget you've got an overdrive gear. And so you're driving along top gear, forgetting you've got an overdrive, which actually takes you to a new level. And so it's the same with our attention. We drive through our life as the ego, forgetting we have an overdrive, we have a soul dimension, the subject pole of attention. So step one in the 3Q method is reminding ourselves that there is another pole of attention, the soul. So that's step one, notice. Now step two is feel. And the question is, well, feel what? Well, it's just about feeling what it's like at the subject pole, because we're so often not feeling the subject pole because we're identified with the object pole, and we're feeling all the qualities of the ego and forgetting to feel the qualities of the soul. So step two, feel, is about feeling the qualities of the soul. And to do that, we use this breathing technique. So I'm going to describe the breathing technique now, and then you can do this breathing technique along with me. So bring your attention now to your breathing. Just notice at the end of the in-breath, there's a slight pause when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. So just find that pause now. Did you find that pause? You don't have to hold your breath. In fact, it's important not to hold your breath. Just notice there's a pause at the end of the in-breath. When you finish breathing in, before you start breathing out, there's a slight pause in the breathing. Did you find that pause? It's very short. It's less than a second. It's like a microsecond. Okay, so now that you've found that pause at the end of the in-breath, like in that pause, feel what it feels like in that end of the in-breath when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. does it feel for you in that pause at the end of the in-breath? Feels peaceful, doesn't it? Feels calm. Notice the process in that pause. The thinking pauses as well, doesn't it? When the breathing pauses, and that's why you feel peaceful in that pause, because it's the thinking, all the disturbance. Just check it out again. Find at the end of the in-breath, when you're neither breathing, you're not breathing. So that peaceful feeling that you find there is the native state prior to the thinking process. The thinking is super, because the thinking pauses, when the breathing pauses, you're able to feel what's deeper than thought, which is this peaceful feeling. So just find that peaceful feeling each time you come to the end of the in-breath. So this is step 2 of the portal, feel. But we have a further step to go, which is be. Be means be that peaceful feeling. So find that peaceful feeling end of the in-breath, and then I'll lead us into step 3. So when you find that peaceful feeling at the end of the in-breath, move to step 3, be that peaceful feeling. And that simply means allow the peaceful feeling to go all over your body and mind. So take a look around the room now. Just notice you are being consciousness itself. You're not being your thoughts. You're not being your emotions. Your body, you're not being your mind. Sure, you might be aware of thoughts and emotions because they resume after step 2. Thoughts and emotions resume, but you're simply being the field of awareness which is aware of all the objects of attention. It's aware of your thoughts and emotions, but you're not identified with your thoughts and emotions now. You're simply being the consciousness of your thoughts and emotions. So this is the meditation space, and it's the space that activates your spiritual intelligence. Position at the subject pole, you're simply being consciousness itself, and all the qualities of consciousness itself naturally emerge spontaneously. And this is called spiritual intelligence. And the qualities are not only peace, but compassion and joy and love and creativity. All these qualities naturally emerge when you're simply being consciousness itself, or being your soul, if you like. Some people, because it makes them think we're being religious, but being the soul simply means being consciousness itself, being the true self, being who you really are, instead of being the mind or being the body, which is the false self. That's the ego state of consciousness. So these simple steps, notice, feel, and be, shift you from ego to soul, and activate your spiritual intelligence. And this is why we call the 3Q method direct spiritual realization, because it's direct. It directly goes to your higher consciousness, instead of all these indirect methods they are used, which can take quite a while if to get to the subject pole, if they ever get there. So we practice this method of spiritual realization together every week at the same time, Wednesdays at 12 noon London time. So I do hope you'll join us next week at the same time. And between now and then, please practice this method yourself, notice, feel, and be, so that you become expert at activating spiritual intelligence. And you'll discover you can use this method in association with any activity. You can use the method while you're at work, while you're walking down the street, while you're talking to someone, and you can use it when your ego gets activated. You know, if someone says something and you have an angry response, or you feel sad or anxious, you can use this method to activate your spiritual intelligence and experience the qualities of your soul instead of the reactions of your ego. So please practice the method between now and next week, so that you prove to yourself it actually works, and that you prove to yourself that you can use this whenever you need to, whenever you want to, for the rest of your life. You now have a way to go beyond the limitations of your ego. I mean, it's a wonderful discovery. And this is a recent development in psychology and neuroscience. And so I'm sharing this with you so that you can benefit from the latest discoveries in secular science, the secular science of spiritual realization. Now, of course, we're doing this every day, every week at the same time, for our own benefit, but also to benefit other people. Because the more we practice this method, the easier we make it for other people, the truth of who they are, and to experience the joys and the peace and the love of spiritual realization. So we're doing this for everyone's sake, not just for our own sake. So I do hope you'll join us next week. And in the meantime, as I said, please remember to practice this method. Now, if you want a review of this method, you'll find a link above this video, which will take you to a website, sqi.co. And on that website, you'll find an article called How to Experience Spiritual Intelligence. And it has a much longer video explaining in detail this 3Q method. Please check that out if you want a review of how to activate your spiritual intelligence. Okay, well, that's all for this week, and I hope to see you next week. Bye-bye for now.